Picture this. A nonprofit was struggling. They had the idea, the impact numbers, and the scale of the problem that millions of people live without clean water. With all the different marketing they were doing, donors simply weren't giving. Then they changed one thing, and the donor spigot opened up. It was more like a fire hose. Today, we're breaking down narrative transportation, what it is, the brands using it to raise and sell hundreds of millions of dollars while reshaping the brand categories, what the research says about what telling stories does to your buyers, and the marketing playbook you can use to put this principle to work immediately as part of your marketing strategy. Narrative transportation is what happens when someone becomes absorbed in a story to the point where their real-world judgment shifts. Their critical thinking quiets down, their counter-arguments stop firing, and beliefs embedded in the story start to feel like their own. This isn't a metaphor. It's a measurable cognitive state. When people are transported into a narrative, they process information differently than when they're evaluating facts and claims. In analytical mode, buyers are skeptical. They're comparing, objecting, looking for holes. But in narrative mode, they're experiencing. They're inside the story. And when you're inside a story, you don't argue with it. You feel it. The company in the opening to this episode is Charity Water, and it's one of the most successful nonprofits in the world. They've raised over $700 million since launching in 2006. But what you might not know is that their entire fundraising model was built on a deliberate rejection of how nonprofits traditionally communicate. Most nonprofits lead with scale. 785 million people lack access to clean water. A big, important number about the mission, but it doesn't move people. Charity Water figured this out early. Instead of leading with aggregate statistics, they started building every campaign around a single person with their specific name, living in a specific village with their specific daily reality. They show the before, then they show the after. And you know what happens? The donor sees themselves as the character who made the change possible. That's not just good storytelling. That's narrative transportation. The donor isn't evaluating a charity anymore. They're inside the story, and the story only has a happy ending if they donate. Now let's look at another company. Let's look at Airbnb. In their early years, they were a budget travel platform competing on price. Listings looked like Craigslist. Then they made a shift. They stopped marketing apartments and started marketing the hosts, real people with real lives opening their homes. The Belong Anywhere campaign in 2014 didn't feature a single property photo in its hero creative. It featured people, dinner tables, neighborhoods. Airbnb's bookings grew more than 80% year over year through that period. And the company has said publicly that the shift to host-centered storytelling was a turning point in how travelers perceived the brand. Travelers weren't booking a room anymore. They were entering a story about what their trip could feel like. And then there's Dove. Before 2004, Dove was a soap company running product benefit ads, moisturizing cream, quarter cleansing lotion, standard CPG playbook. Then Unilever launched the Real Beauty campaign, and the entire brand changed almost overnight. Instead of talking about what the product does, they told stories about how real women see themselves. The Real Beauty Sketches film became the most watched ad in the world at the time. Not because it mentioned Dove's ingredients, because it transported viewers into the emotional experience of a woman realizing she's more beautiful than she thinks. Dove grew a $2.5 billion brand to over $4 billion in the first decade of that campaign. Same soap, same shelves, completely different marketing strategy. To put it in perspective, all three of these brands compete in categories drowned in irrational data: nonprofit efficiency ratings, hotel price comparisons, CPG ingredient lists. And all three of them leapfrogged the competition by making the buyer a character in a narrative instead of an evaluator of features. Now, Are these three companies just outliers, or is there something to this? In 2004, a researcher at the University of Houston published a study in the Journal of Consumer Psychology that tested narrative transportation in the context most relevant to marketers: advertising. Participants watched ads for two types of products. Some ads used a narrative structure, a character with a problem, a journey, a resolution. Others used an analytical structure, product attributes, features, and reasons to buy. When viewers were transported into the narrative ads, they formed more favorable brand attitudes and generated fewer critical thoughts about the product. The story didn't just entertain them, it lowered their defenses, and the more transported they were, the stronger the effect. Transportation doesn't just change what people think about your product, it changes whether they think critically about it at all. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. A later study published in Organizational Behavior and Human Decision Processes tested this principle in a giving context. Researchers at Carnegie Mellon gave participants information about food shortages in Africa. One group got statistical data, millions affected, severity of the crisis. Another group got a story about a single 7-year-old girl named Rokita, her face, her daily life, what she needed. The group that read Rokita's story gave more than twice as much as the group that received the statistics. And when a third group received both the story and statistics together, donations dropped back down. Adding the data undermined the story's power. The analytical framing pulled people out of the narrative and back into evaluation mode. Think about what that means for your next product launch, your next case study page, your next sales deck. The data you're adding to quote-unquote support the story might be the thing that's actually killing it. Here's your marketing playbook to put this narrative transportation strategy to work for your marketing. Marketing move number 1, lead with a person, not a metric. Like we talked about, most marketing defaults to aggregate proof. 10,000 customers served, 98% satisfaction rate. Those numbers feel safe, but they don't transport anyone. Now, turn this. Our platform has helped over 5,000 companies reduce churn by an average of 23%. 2. When the head of retention at a Series B fintech opened her dashboard on Monday morning, she saw something she hadn't seen in 18 months. 0 cancellations over the weekend. Here's what changed. This week, take your highest performing case study and rewrite the opening. Start with a named person, a specific moment, and a problem they were facing before your product entered the picture. Remember, the story comes first. Marketing move number 2, remove the data that breaks the spell. This is counterintuitive, but the research is clear here. When people are inside a narrative, adding analytical information pulls them out. It's like pausing a movie to show a pie chart. Turn a landing page that alternates between customer story and stat block, story and stat block, story and stat block, to a landing page where the customer narrative runs uninterrupted from problem to resolution, with a single proof point placed at a natural conclusion, not in the middle. This week, audit your top 3 conversion pages. Find the places where you interrupt a story to insert a metric, a badge, or some data call out. Move these elements below the narrative arc, not inside it. Let the story breathe and transport the person into it. Marketing move number 3, build an arc, not a testimonial. Most customer stories in marketing aren't stories. They're flat out endorsements. They say things like, "We love the product, it saved us time." That has no tension, no transformation, no transportation. A real narrative needs 3 things: a problem that felt unsolvable, a turning point where something changed, and a new reality on the other side. So turn, great tool, easy to implement, saved our team 10 hours a week, highly recommend, to our team was buried, 3 people doing the work of 6, and our renewal rate was falling flat off a cliff. We've tried 2 other platforms and both failed during onboarding. Then, fill in your product name, did something different. This week, pick 1 customer testimonial on your site and interview that customer for 15 minutes. Ask them what was failing before, what the worst moment was, and what it felt like when things turned around. Rebuild the testimonials as a 3-act story: the struggle, the shift, and the result. That structure is what creates transportation, and a buyer who's inside your story has already stopped shopping. Every competitor in your category has data. They have metrics, benchmarks, case study, PDFs with bar charts, etc. What they don't have is a story your buyer can't stop thinking about. Give your buyers a narrative they can step into and see what it does for your conversions and your sales. Your marketing move.